Yo, what up, fuckhead? You gonna remember this one? This is my bookmark. If you remember me asking, are you gonna remember? You've seen this one. Chapter 5 The Whomping Willow. The end of summer vacation came too quickly for Harry's liking. He was looking forward to getting back to Hogwarts, but this month at the Burrow had been the happiest of his life. It was difficult not to feel jealous of Ron when he thought of the Dursleys and the sort of welcome he could expect next time he turned up on Privet Drive. On their last evening, Mrs. Weasley conjured up a sumptuous dinner that included all of Harry's favorite things, ending with a mouth-watering treacle pudding. Treacle? Treacle. Fred and George rounded off the evening with a display of filibuster fireworks. They filled the kitchen with red and blue stars that bounded from ceiling to wall for at least half an hour. Then it was time for a last mug of hot chocolate and bed. It took a long while to get started next morning. They were up at dawn, but somehow they still seemed to have a great deal to do. Mrs. Weasley dashed about in a bad mood looking for spare socks and quills. People kept colliding on the stairs, half-dressed with bits of toast in their hands, and Mr. Weasley nearly broke his neck, tripping over a stray chicken as he crossed the yard carrying Ginny's trunk to the car. Harry couldn't see how 8 people, 6 large trunks, 2 owls, and a rat were going to fit into one small Ford Anglia. Anglia. He had reckoned, of course, without the special features that Mr. Weasley had added. Harry couldn't see how 8 people, 6 large trunks, 2 owls, and a rat were going to fit into one small Ford Anglia. He had reckoned, of course, without the special features that Mr. Weasley had added. Not a word to Molly, he whispered to Harry as he opened the trunk and showed him how it had been magically expanded so that the luggage fitted easily. Good God. Not a word to Molly, he whispered to Harry as he opened the trunk and showed him how it had been magically expanded so that the luggage fitted easily. When at last they were all in the car, Mrs. Weasley glanced into the back seat where Harry, Ron, Fred, George, and Percy were all sitting comfortably side by side and said, "Muggles do know more than we give them credit for, don't they?" She and Ginny got into the front seat, which had been stretched so that it resembled a park bench. "I mean, you'd never know it was this roomy from the outside, would you?" "You'd never know it was this roomy from the outside, would you?" "Would you? Would you?" Mr. Weasley started up the engine, and they trundled out of the yard, Harry turning back for a last look at the house. He barely had time to wonder when he'd see it again. When they were back, George had forgotten his box of filibuster fireworks. 5 minutes after that, they skidded to a halt in the yard so that Fred could run in for his broomstick. They had almost reached the highway when Ginny shrieked that she'd left her diary. Foreshadow. They almost reached the highway when Ginny shrieked that she left her diary. Sorry, my hand looked purple for a minute. I thought I was dying. By the time she had clambered back in the car, they were running very late and tempers were running high. I think I am dying. Does this look really purple to you? Alright, well, if I am dying, I'd like to give all my money to Tawana, most of my stuff to Tom, all my Harry Potters to you. By the way, they're worth money, okay? So be good to them. Especially the one in the back. It's worth a lot of money, idiot. It's purple and it hurts. I think I'm dying. Oh, Captain. I suppose you should take Captain. Wow. That's mind-blowing that I decided that so quickly. But that's... Whew. Now I kind of hope I'm dying. I think you would give him a much better life than I do. By the time she had clambered back into the car, they were running late, very late, and tempers were running high. Mr. Weasley glanced at his watch and then at his wife. Molly, dear. No, Arthur. No one would see. This little button is an invisibility booster I installed. That'll get us up in the air. Then we'd fly above the clouds. We'd be there in 10 minutes and no one would be any the wiser. I said, no, Arthur, not in broad daylight. Ah. They reached King's Cross at 11:15. Mr. Weasley dashed across the road to get trolleys for their trunks, and they all hurried into the station. Harry had caught the Hogwarts Express the previous year. The tricky part was getting onto the platform 9 3/4, which wasn't visible to the Muggle eye. What you had to do was walk through to the solid barrier dividing platforms 9 and 10. It's not visible to any eye, unless you walk through the wall, which if a Muggle walked through it, would they go through it? It's not visible to anyone. It didn't hurt, but it had to be done carefully so that none of the Muggles noticed you vanishing. Percy first, said Mrs. Weasley, looking nervously at the clock overhead, which showed they had only 5 minutes to disappear casually through the barrier. Percy strode briskly forward and vanished. Mr. Weasley went next. Fred and George followed. I'll take Ginny and you two come right after us, Mrs. Weasley told Harry and Ron, grabbing Ginny's hand and setting off. In the blink of an eye, they were gone. Let's go together. We've only got a minute, Ron said to Harry. Harry made sure that Hedwig's cage was safely wedged on top of his trunk, and he wheeled his trolley around to face the barrier. He felt perfectly confident. This wasn't nearly as uncomfortable as using flu powder. Both of them bent low over the handles of their trolleys and walked purposefully toward the barrier, gathering speed. A few feet away from it, they broke into a run and... crash. Both trolleys hit the barrier and bounced backward. Ron's trunk fell off with a loud thump. Harry was knocked off his feet, and Hedwig's cage bounced onto the shiny floor, and she rolled away, shrieking indignantly. People all around them stared, and a guard nearby yelled, "What in blazes do you think you're doing?" "Lost control of the trolley," Harry gasped, clutching his ribs as he got up. Ron ran to pick up Hedwig, who was causing such a scene that there was a lot of muttering about cruelty to animals from the surrounding crowd. "Why can't we get through?" Harry hissed to Ron. "I don't know." Ron looked wildly around. A dozen curious people were still watching them. "We're going to miss the train," Ron whispered. "I don't understand why the gateway sealed itself." Harry looked up at the giant clock with a sickening feeling in the pit of his stomach. 10 seconds. 9 seconds. He wheeled his trolley forward cautiously until it was right against the barrier and pushed it with all his might. The metal remained solid. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. "It's gone," said Ron, sounding stunned. "The train's left. What if Mom and Dad can't get back through to us? Have you got any Muggle money?" Does it look purple to you? It looks so purple to me. It doesn't show up on the camera. Does it look purple now?